Jake just wrote a check for $32,000, his daughter's annual tuition at a private school that has been operating for 22 years. And as he put the pen down, he had the thought that every parent has at this moment, who is getting rich from this? Because someone must be. This school has 400 students at an average tuition of $30,000. That is $12 million a year in tuition checks, walking through the front door, and the school has been open for 22 years, which means $264 million in tuition has been collected in this building. And yet the school does not look like a money printing machine. The hallways need updating, the athletic facilities are aging, and the principal sent a letter last month asking parents for donations to fund a new gymnasium. And Jake wants to know, where did the $264 million go? Today, I'm going to show him exactly where, because the economics of owning a school are one of the most misunderstood business models in American education, and the gap between what parents pay and what the school owner actually keeps is far larger than almost anyone realizes. The teacher cost that consumes everything. Here's the first place Jake's $32,000 goes, and it goes there before it goes anywhere else. A private school with 400 students, maintaining the student-to-teacher ratio that justifies $32,000 in annual tuition, needs approximately 35 to 45 teachers. At an average salary of $55,000 plus benefits that add approximately 30%. A teaching staff of 40 people costs the school approximately $2.9 million per year in salaries alone, before benefits, before payroll taxes, before professional development requirements, before the substitute teachers who cover when full-time staff are absent. Teacher compensation in a well-run private school consumes between 25 and 35% of total tuition revenue, and that percentage is not optional, because the teacher quality is the only reason parents pay $32,000 instead of sending their child to the local public school for free. The facility debt that never goes away. Here's the second place Jake's tuition money goes, and it surprises almost every parent who learns about it. The building Jake's daughter walks into every morning required either a massive capital investment to build or a massive ongoing cost to rent. A private school campus of adequate size for 400 students, built in the last 20 years, cost between $15 and $40 million to construct, financed over 20 to 30 years, at an interest rate that seemed reasonable when the school was founded, and represents between $800,000 and $2 million in annual debt service, every single year, regardless of how many students are enrolled, and the building requires maintenance. Approximately 2% of replacement value per year in maintenance costs, insurance against liability, against fire, against the claims of 400 children and their parents who interact with the facility every day, utilities for a building operating 12 hours a day, 9 months a year. The total facilities cost in a private school typically runs between 20 and 25% of tuition revenue, the Accreditation Trap. Here's the detail that most aspiring school owners discover after they have committed to opening. That changes all of their financial projections. Accreditation, to attract the kind of families who pay $32,000 in annual tuition. A private school must be accredited by a recognized accreditation body. Accreditation requires meeting specific standards for teacher qualifications and minimum salary levels, student support services, library and resource requirements, administrative infrastructure, facility standards, and ongoing compliance monitoring. The accreditation process costs between $50,000 and $200,000, takes between 2 and 5 years to complete, and requires the school to maintain standards that drive costs significantly higher than they would be without accreditation. And without accreditation, the families willing to pay $32,000 per year will choose a different school, which means accreditation is not optional. It is the price of admission to the market the school wants to serve. The enrollment cliff reality. Here is the economic vulnerability that makes school ownership one of the most nerve-wracking businesses in American education. Fixed cost, teacher salaries, mortgage payments, insurance, utilities, administrative staff do not change meaningfully with enrollment, which means that enrollment is everything. A school at 400 students generating $12 million in tuition with fixed costs of $10 million has $2 million of operating margin. A school that drops to 350 students loses $1.5 million in tuition revenue, but loses almost none of its costs, and suddenly has $500,000 in margin instead of $2 million. A school that drops to 300 students for 2 consecutive years is in genuine financial distress, regardless of how good the education is, and enrollment can drop for reasons completely outside the school's control. A recession that makes tuition unaffordable for 20 families, a new competitor school that opens nearby, a demographic shift in the neighborhood, a single incident that generates negative publicity. Any of these can trigger an enrollment decline that the fixed cost structure of the school cannot absorb gracefully. The endowment gap. Here is why the economics of a school that has been open for 22 years looks so different from the economics of Harvard or Exeter or Andover. The prestigious schools that have existed for decades or centuries have accumulated endowments of millions or billions of dollars. Investment portfolios that generate annual income, supplementing tuition revenue significantly. Harvard's endowment generates approximately $2 billion per year in investment income, which allows Harvard to provide financial aid, maintain facilities, attract faculty, and absorb enrollment volatility in ways that a 22-year-old private school with a $5 million endowment simply cannot replicate. The school Jake's daughter attends has been operating for 22 years and has accumulated an endowment of approximately $3 million, which generates approximately $120,000 in annual investment income. On $12 million in tuition revenue, $3 million in endowment is the gap between the economics of an established institution and the economics of a business that is still building, the donation dependency, which is why the principal sent the letter asking for gymnasium donations. The school is not failing. It is functioning exactly as the economics of school ownership at this stage typically function. Tuition covers operating costs, sometimes with a small surplus, sometimes breaking even, sometimes with a small deficit, and capital improvements, the gymnasium that parents expect, the updated technology infrastructure that students need, the facility upgrades that compete with newer competitor schools, require donations that the economics of tuition alone cannot fund. Every private school at this stage of development depends on the generosity of parents and alumni, not because the school is poorly managed, but because the economics of education do not generate the margins required to fund both operations and capital improvement from tuition alone. Here's what Jake's $32,000 actually funds. Approximately $8,000 goes to teacher salaries and benefits. Approximately $7,000 goes to facilities, costs, and debt service. Approximately $4,000 goes to administrative staff. Approximately $3,000 goes to student services and programs. Approximately $2,000 goes to technology and resources. Approximately $2,000 goes to insurance and utilities. Approximately $1,000 goes to accreditation and compliance. Approximately $1,000 goes to marketing and admissions. And approximately $4,000 goes to the operating surplus that keeps the school financially stable. That $4,000 surplus per student on 400 students is $1.6 million of annual operating surplus, from which the school funds emergency reserves, small capital improvements, and the beginning of an endowment that might, in another 20 years, provide the financial cushion that allows the school to operate with the stability that Jake assumes already exists. Jake seals the envelope with the $32,000 check inside and thinks about where the money goes, and realizes that the $264 million the school has collected over 22 years was not a windfall for an owner counting money in a private office. It was the cost of maintaining something extraordinary and almost impossibly expensive, an institution that educates 400 children every year in the specific way that justifies $32,000 a year, and that the school asking for gymnasium donations is not evidence of mismanagement. It is evidence of exactly how thin the economics of education actually are. Even when the tuition feels enormous, you have been decoded. If this video made you think about your child's school, or your own education, or the economics of every institution you have ever paid tuition to, completely differently, subscribe to Money Decoder 3004. Every single week, we decode the economics of the familiar institutions that shape every American life. Simply, honestly, and clearly, drop a comment below. Do you think private school tuition is too high, or does knowing the economics change that opinion? Tell me below. I read every single comment, and I will see you in the next decode.